Hey everyone, happy Saturday. Welcome to Virtual Vegfest Live. Super excited about today's talk, as I'm sure you guys are too. We'll get to that. First, let's say thank you to Living with Harmony, our special sponsor this week, because Dr. McDougall is joining us. And then, of course, Hodo Foods is our sponsor of Virtual Vegfest for the month of, what are we in March? We're in March. That's awesome. And then, of course, Plant Based Network is our sponsor of Virtual Veg Fest. So, you want to win prizes? It's a great way to win prizes. I see Dr. McDougall just got changed and brushed his hair. So, you can win prizes by going to virtualvegfest.com and clicking the little contest tab, and you can enter to win a prize pack from Hodo Foods, Follow Your Heart, Crafters Organic, and Orgain. Simple thing to do as subscribe to Virtual Veg Fest YouTube is one of the things that you can do to get 10 points, 10 entries into those contests to win a prize pack that will be mailed to the winners every month. And we pick the winners at the beginning of the next month. So you have 4 more days to enter for March. Go do it. It's really simple. And let's see what else. Dr. McDougall's on today. We didn't know that, if this is the reason why you're here. So we're going to have a fun conversation with him, get to know him, because this isn't a lecture podcast. This is a get to know who's on podcast, and that's the whole goal. Let's see, I kind of I'm one of those put things out into the universe people, and I wanted to figure out a way to be in touch with Dr. McDougall. And I got an email from Celeste Rao that said, hey, I want to hook you up with Dr. McDougall. So I've had a few calls with him, and of course I set this up. So I think he's ready. If you have any questions or comments, remember to put them in the box. We'll definitely address them. And let's get going. Hey, Dr. McDougall.
You got me unmuted. Good. Wow.
Oh,
Sure has some
yeah.
tech problems. Get ready.
I'm so excited. How are you?
Good. Good.
I,
Nice, beautiful day here in Oregon, and yeah, feeling good, functioning well, and just glad to be alive.
That's wonderful. I think it's going to storm here, probably while we're doing this. So that's okay. It's why we're indoors. But I absolutely adore you. And I've enjoyed our calls that we've had so far. And I'm looking forward to getting to know you even better through this talk. So first, for those who don't know who you are, like they don't live on this planet, for the people who don't know who you are, can you share a bit about you, your
Sure.
history, anything you want to share? It doesn't have to be 30 seconds. You can go for as long as you want.
Well, I'll just get to the high points. I'm in my mid 70s. I'm a grandfather. I have 7 grandchildren. I suppose that's probably all you need to know about me. Uh, I am a medical doctor. I'm a board certified internist. I've written 13 national best-selling books. Uh, I established a food line called Dr. McDougall's Right Food, which is in all your grocery stores all over the country. And let's see, I've run live-in programs right now. What you need to know most importantly, Helene, is some of your subscribers, they need a little extra help. And, they know what they're supposed to do. They know there's a possibility of them getting healthier. They know food's involved, but somehow it just hasn't worked in their life the way they should. And so I've spent the last, at least 44 years trying to figure out how to get people to change. I always know they'll get better. That's not a problem. They'll get better, and some of them will be perfectly cured. But how do you get them to do it? And so I've gone from, writing my first book, which was a very basic book we self-published, to, like I say, books that have been on the New York Times best-selling list, to giving lectures, to running adventure trips where we took people all over the country before the recent pandemic. We took all over the world. We took them to South America, Central America, et cetera. These adventure trips where folks, they didn't want to gain 10 pounds on vacation. They wanted to come with us and go home healthier. So we did that for a while. For 34 years, I run residential programs, which means either in a hospital. I used to run it at St. Helena Hospital. I did that for 16 years. And then for the last 18 years, I ran it at a luxury resort in Santa Rosa, California. But with the closure of everything, that happened last year in the year 2020. We went out of business, basically. The adventure trip went out of business. The residential program, which had seen, well, my two residential programs have seen over 6,000 people. We're gone. I mean, we're just virtually gone, as everybody had to change. And fortunately, a lot of real good things happened out of this, Helene. We started a telemarketing or telemedicine program, telehealth program. And yeah, it involves telemarketing too. We're all over the world. And we take now a group of 40 people a month. And our medical doctors go over their medications, taking them off most of their medications when appropriate. Our published research shows that we get nearly 90% of people to reduce or stop their diabetic and blood pressure medications and their other medications too. And they get their health back. And it's a very personal program. As I say, our physician goes into their home, does a telemedicine visit with them, and the whole staff is just, right in your face. Mary and I have a fireside chat every morning with people. We have lots of lectures throughout the program. Every morning, our support staff, and right now that involves a couple of people who have been with me for a long time, up to 20 years. Our support staff goes into their home every morning, talks to them about their food. How's their blood pressure? How's your blood sugar? How much insulin did you take today? Boy, you ought to stop that insulin, etc. Anyway, it's just a very intimate program. What we found, we started running this in August of 2020, is that the telemedicine, telehealth approach is far more effective than a live-in program, and it costs a third the price. Anyway, that's what I'm up to. And how did I get to where I am? Went to medical school in Michigan, met my wife, Mary, almost 50 years ago. It'll be 50 years ago this next year. And we escaped to Hawaii, and Hawaii changed my life. I did my postgraduate training there. I became a board-certified internist at the John Burns School of Medicine. And I had an experience, Helene, that changed me, and a unique experience that would be rare to happen to somebody else, but it could. I mean, it just wouldn't, not common for it to happen. I was on Oahu doing my training, and it was called an internship back then. And I didn't want to leave Hawaii, but, quite honestly, I didn't want to be a doctor either because I didn't see myself helping people. I mean, plain and simple, I just saw failure after failure around me. And that's not how I wanted to spend my life. So after a year of internship, I quit. And I took a job as a sugar plantation doctor on the Big Island of Hawaii, which is where I learned everything. I learned everything about being a doctor. For 3 years, I took care of 5,000 people. I caught 100 babies. I did brain surgery in the middle of the night. I did everything because I was it. So anyway, after 3 years, I discovered a couple of important things. One, and this is kind of an ego death experience when it comes to being a doctor, is I had to decide that I was a terrible doctor because my patients didn't get well. And out of that frustration, and I did take it very personally, I decided to get more training. Because, I'd hand out these pills and they never got well. They just got pills. They got excuses and pills. They never got well when it comes to chronic diseases. Well, I helped people when it came to acute problems, like if they cut themselves with a machete or they broke a bone or got an infection. I was a miracle doctor. I was like Ben Casey, Dr. Kildare, and Marcus Welby. But when it came to 90% of my patients, Helene, it was obvious to me, and it should have been obvious to them, that I was a failure. Anyway, I learned that. And the second thing I learned when I was a sugar plantation doctor over a 3-year period of time, in my mid-20s, it was 50 years ago, Helene. In my mid-20s, I learned that food had a lot to do with health, which was a whole new, unique concept to me. Remember, I was a medical doctor. Food has nothing to do with health when you're a medical doctor. So I was in this situation where I was taking care of first, second, third, and fourth generation Filipinos, Japanese, Chinese, and Koreans. What I mean by that is my older patients came from the Philippines, Japan, China, and Korea. They came over to live on the Big Island of Hawaii with a preferential diet of rice, almost no meat and no dairy in their diet. And they came to the big island of Hawaii, worked the plantation jobs, brought their genes with them, brought their ethics with them, etc. Kept their diet. Yes, they did, the first generation, but their kids, they got influenced to the Western ways. Uh, they had McDonald's came to Hilo in 1974, so they got McDonald's in 1970. I know that, Helene, because I was one of the first and best customers for McDonald's. And anyway, the second, third, and fourth generation, as they got away from the rice and started eating the good old American diet, they got fat and sick just like everybody else I trained on. So it had nothing to do with genetics. It had nothing to do with style of work, that remained the same on the plantation for 100 years. Well, I went back into training. As I told you, after 3 years, I quit because I didn't see myself being a happy person, I'll tell you. It was very frustrating. And I went back into training, became a board-certified internist, and in the process, I developed a passion for the scientific literature. And, even to this day, 50 years later, I read that's what I do most of the day is I read scientific literature, think about it, develop talks and writings and so on. Anyway, I became very passionate about medicine once I discovered that 80% of the illness, at least 80% of the illness that I was taking care of as an internist is caused by what we eat. And most of that is curable. Now, what I'm talking about is obesity, which affects, depends on what statistic you look at, somewhere between 20 and 40% of the population. Being overweight, which affects as much as 80% of the population. Prediabetes, which affects half the population. Frank diabetes, which affects 10% of the population. We're talking about a ubiquitous situation. You turn around and there's somebody suffering from chronic disease. You can't walk down the street. You can't go to certainly your place of worship. You can't go to your school. You can't go, you probably can't even go into your own household and find a healthy person. They're just not there anymore. And it's because of food poisoning. That's the problem. And I've been teaching food poisoning as a method of people understanding this for at least a decade. I try to teach people, well, the cholesterol's bad for you, the salt's bad for you, the lack of fiber's bad for you, the fat's bad. I try to teach that. It was just too complicated. And then I explained to people, well, the reason they're sick is because of food poisoning. Just like you can you can suffer from other poisonings to your behavior, like you can suffer from alcohol poisoning. 1 out of 10 people does. You can suffer from tobacco poisoning, heroin poisoning. There are all kinds of poisonings that people are familiar with, and if you stop the poison, guess what? Well, guess what, Helene? Guess what? They get well.
Yep.
You stop the poison. Well, anyway, there are 2 categories of food poison that people suffer from. We're talking about the Western diet. And one category is animal foods. And so on the McDougall program, you exclude all animal foods from your diet. And the next one, which may surprise some of your listeners, is that it excludes all oil. Oil is very toxic. And we're talking about corn oil, safflower oil, olive oil, very toxic to the system. Not a food, it's at best a chemical that causes medical changes. It does that. It suppresses the immune system and maybe relieves pain and so on. But it's a poison. It suppresses the immune system and it aggravates cancer progression, infections and bleeding problems. It's a poison. Blood clotting. It's a poison. So the 2 categories of food poisoning are animal foods and vegetable oils. And Helene, many people, after they hear what I have to say the first time in particular, they look at me and they go, well, good grief, McDougall, there's nothing to eat. You just took away everything I eat, which is animals and
oil.
Oh, yeah. So this is where people need to understand the concept of starch. Okay, until you understand starch, you're finished. You don't understand it. You can't really manipulate your diet. So, but people are afraid of starches. Starches have been maligned. People think starches make you fat, think they're cheap food, inadequate food, and so on. But that's not the truth. The truth of the matter is starch has been the primary human fuel throughout all of human history. You know, 99.999% of the people who walk this earth have lived on starch-based diets. It's only been in the last 50 to 100 years that we've had this perversion of living off animals and oils and other crap. Starch. Let's talk about what starch is, because people hate it so much they don't even want to hear what it is. Starch is potatoes and rice and corn and breads and pastas. Ooh, things you like. You love starch. But everybody told you not to eat it. Why? Because everybody that has the money, it's the meat in. They're into selling products. That's basically it. So we've got this misinformation, this big lie that starches are fattening, and as a result, people don't stand a chance. So we feed a starch-based diet, which is the traditional diet of people. Think about it. Think about it. The American Indian lived on corn. The natives to Central America, the Aztecs and the Mayans, were known as the people of the corn. The Incas, they lived on potatoes. I was reading this morning, there are 4,000 varieties of potatoes in Peru. When the Incas went to battle, they took quinoa with them because potatoes were too heavy. If you go to the East, the Far East, most people today can relate to the fact that over 2 billion Asians lived on white rice up until 1980. And these Asians living on white rice, they almost won World War II. And they won the Vietnamese conflict. You tell me rice is bad. You tell me white rice is bad. If you go to Middle Eastern countries where they live on barley and beans and wheat, or they used to, it was called the breadbasket of the world. The breadbasket of the world. Excuse me, and bread's bad for you? Anyway, you have to get your mind around the truth. The truth is that we are starchitarians. We're starchivores. We're starch eaters. Get it or suffer.
I can't see anyone saying, no, 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 don't let me eat starch. Honestly, it's one of the best foods ever.
Yeah, but that's to you and I because we're informed. But most of the public out there is not. And so they fear a potato. Oh, a potato's going to make me fat. Excuse me, I live on potatoes. I'm not fat.
It's not the potato. It's the sour cream, bacon, butter, oil, everything you put, cheese, dairy cheese, that you put onto that potato. That's what's making you fat and unhealthy. The potato itself, cooked, just eating a potato that's cooked like in the air fryer, in the microwave even, or the oven, is absolutely delicious. Just the potato with nothing on it.
Well, you and I know that. And you throw a little ketchup on it, and it's really good.
You have barbecue sauce?
Yeah, barbecue sauce. You can do that and enhance a potato. But you've got to have the ketchup and the barbecue sauce to get the chicken and the beef down because it's so disgusting. It's so unpalatable. It's so smelly. You have to cover it up with barbecue sauce because you can't eat it plain. I would give any of your unconverted listeners out there a challenge. Why don't you boil chicken for dinner tonight? Have boiled chicken for dinner.
Just like grandma made, right?
I don't think Grandma even was that mean. She threw at least a little salt in it.
Right. Yeah, it's a good point. And before I was vegan and I used to host a lot of meetups and I'd have people over to play games, not vegan people. And before I turned my house to a vegan household where you couldn't bring any meat items in, someone brought in chicken, like, the rotisserie chicken that you buy, and they sat at my table and they were eating the meat off the bones. And I just got so repulsed that I just said, you can't bring this into my house anymore because I can't. One thing I cannot watch, and you can eat, you put what in your body, you get to where you need to be, wherever you are at your stage of getting to plant-based or vegan. But what I can't watch is someone eating chicken off the bone. It is so disgusting to me that like repulsively disgusting that the sounds they make when they're eating. They just need, I think people just need to videotape themselves while they're eating that and then go, that's what you look and sound like. And so gross. So gross.
All right, I understand.
Yeah. We have like Stephen Heimowitz actually has a question for you. I'll put it up on the screen. I'll read it. Please comment, on, Dr. McDougall, please comment on some of your mentors you have mentioned in your book, The Healthiest Diet on the Planet. Dennis
Oh yeah.
Burkitt, Russell Henry Chittenden, Nathan Pritikin, William Rose, and Roy Swank. I'm especially interested in Pritikin. Thank you so much for bringing health to so many and encouraging us all in feeling secure and knowing going vegan is the way to go. Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked that because I love to give credit to other people. And there's really nothing I've done that's original. And I stand on the shoulders of four men primarily. You added Russell Henry Chittenden and William Rose in there, but there are primarily four men whose shoulders I stand on. And they started with Dennis Burkitt. And you could read about Dennis Burkitt and actually watch the only video ever done about Dennis Burkitt. I did it when I was a young man. The only existing video of Dennis Burkitt you'll find in my January 2013 newsletter, along with a whole discussion about our relationship. In February of 2013, I did the same thing for Nathan Pritikin. You'll find the only video interview ever done with Nathan Pritikin on my website. I did it. When I was a young man, I realized how important these people were until I took them to professional studios and I filmed them. And then Roy Swank, I had a chance to film him when he came to my clinic. And I'll go back to Pritikin in a minute to talk a bit about him. But Roy Swank was the head of neurology at the University of Oregon, Oregon Health and Science University it's called, the medical school for 23 years. He developed the treatment of multiple sclerosis with a low-fat diet. It's a disease that's easily cured with a low-fat diet. So anyway, he was a personal friend of mine. In fact, I still, to this day, have a legal agreement with Dr. Swank to take on his message and, over his practice, etc. So it was very important. And then the fourth person is a fellow by the name of Walter Kempner, who was at Duke University his program was there for almost 7 decades. He came to Duke in 1934, started the rice diet in 1939, and for 2 decades he was the primary financial support for Duke. That's how famous the rice diet was. And Walter Kempner, with a diet of white rice, fruit juice, and sugar, cured pretty much everything. It was an amazing diet. I still use it, the Kempner approach, but I call it the diet for the desperate. Because people have to they have to have lost 90% of their heart or their kidneys before I resort to such a strict diet. It's just not necessary. But anyway, he was very important in my life, to say. Excuse me, I guess I've been talking too much. Anyway, going back to Nathan Pritikin, I got to know Pritikin pretty well. In fact, well enough so he wrote the only foreword that he ever wrote for a book for anybody. He wrote it in my book called The McDougall Plan. And I had a chance to host Nathan Pritikin on a couple occasions, had him to my house. He changed my life. I discovered the things that I am telling you about. I started to tell you about the sugar plantation, why people who ate the rice-based diet I discovered were never sick with diseases that I commonly took care of. So I had all this information, and I started, as I was mentioning, I went back to the university and I started reading in the library. And I found out that there were tens of thousands of articles that showed just exactly what I'd observed to be true. Helene, I was scared. Remember, I was a young doctor. I was in my late 20s then. I was afraid that, either I was going crazy. I was the only one that saw this, or I had my hand on some very powerful information that I didn't know how to deal with. And then I heard Nathan Pritikin talk. I heard actually on a set of audio tapes. And I'll tell you, I got such peace of mind. I realized that this is true. But until I heard his words, I thought I was the Lone Ranger out there. And then I discovered thousands of other people have discovered this. It goes back, I often talk about how it goes back to the first controlled trial that I'm aware of. It was published 2,600 years ago. And it's a trial that was done by Daniel and published in the first chapter of Daniel in the Bible. where his men came to another kingdom where they ate lots of meat. And because they were staying with the king, they were asked to eat at the king's table. Daniel said, look, my men would just soon not. We just soon eat like we usually eat, which is vegan, pulses and water. And so they did a little experiment where they said, let's evaluate the health and the personal appearance of our men and compare them, control trial. And they did so over 10 days. And they found clearly, consistently, that those who ate the vegetables and water were much healthier than those men who ate the royal food. The truth is the truth is the truth. The truth never changes. The truth is simple and easy to explain. So when somebody starts talking to you about a concept that you go, whoa, this is really, really high tech, man. It's really going over my head. It must be really wrong. Wrong. The truth is simple and easy to explain.
So that's a really good analogy in regards to kings and kingdoms, and this is a conversation we have in this house often, is that you've got people who've been living on quinoa and rice and beans, and they aspire to eat the foods of kings and the wealthy, which,
Yeah.
Meat and those type of diets tend to be of wealthier people in those different societies. Obviously not in this society, but in a society where quinoa is a staple, where we're craving quinoa. They're sick of quinoa. They want a steak. They want like the wealthy food. If they have the wealthy food on their plate, they've made it. Right? How do we change that thinking when they're actually saving their lives by the diet that they have, but they aspire to eat the diet that will actually cause them harm?
Well, I don't know the answer to that, Helene.
Yeah.
I've spent 47 years trying to figure it out. The first book I ever wrote was called Making the Change. It wasn't whether or not people would get well. It's not whether or not we could save the planet with this type of eating. But will people do it? I don't know how to get them to do it. What I have found, though, is that, you see, when I was living in Hawaii and practicing this way, that I could play the race card and often get people to seriously consider what was going on. I would say to them, how are Grandma and Grandpa doing? Oh, they're just fine, Doc. What are they? They're Hawaiian, right? Yeah, oh yeah, they're Hawaiian. Are they trim and healthy? Oh yeah, in their 90s working hard. What do they live on? Oh, sweet potatoes, taro. Oh, go to the Japanese family and say, well, how are Grandma and Grandpa? Oh, they're doing wonderful, Doc. Just wonderful. What do they live on? Oh, rice and vegetables. How old are they? They're in their 90s. Well, look at you. Well, what the heck happened to you? Look at you. You're in horrible shape. Don't you think you can learn something from Grandma and Grandpa? And then I would really hit them, and this is very appropriate for this day and age. I hit them with the race card. I say, look at what the white man's diet's done to you, buddy. You talk about white supremacy. Excuse me. You compare that to the dietary diseases, and the white man's in big, big trouble.
Did it work?
Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes it did. Helene, I couldn't figure out. I think I got it somewhat figured out. Who will change and who won't. You have to have a certain amount of intelligence. I figure you got to be at least as smart as a 7-year-old. You got to be able to read, maybe. So you have to be able to comprehend a few concepts, and then the other thing you have to have is self-worth. I would find really smart people, doctors, dentists, etc., who should be able to grasp this information easily, especially with their scientific background, who couldn't make the change. Whereas, my next patient was a house cleaning lady who worked, for $7 an hour. Oh, Doc, thank you very much. And next time I saw her, she's 100 pounds lighter and off the pills. So I don't know. You have to like yourself. That's what you have to do, is like yourself. People don't like themselves. They do all kinds of crazy stuff, like, carry guns around and drink and don't wear their safety belt and smoke cigarettes. And, yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, how do I get people to change? I don't know. But you would think that there's some possibilities, Helene. I have to say, having spent more than 70 years on this planet, I've seen a few things, and I've seen things happened in my lifetime that I never imagined when I was a young man, particularly in the area of communication. I mean, think about what you and I are doing right now.
True.
You know, the possibilities are unbelievable as far as communicating the truth. So I think there's hope. I really do. I think that the truth can become pervasive enough, particularly if the reasons become serious enough, and they have become that in this day and age. You know, you're no longer talking about somebody dropping dead of breast cancer or being crippled up in a wheelchair with rheumatoid arthritis. You're talking about the whole damn planet. So, you know, wake up, ladies and gentlemen. Stop the insanity. It's the food. It's the food.
I know how loud can you yell it? How far and wide can people hear it? You know, how often can this be spread so people can watch and actually listen to the whole thing? That,
Well,
you know,
that's why I really appreciate the time we have today.
oh, me too. Me too. We do have like another couple of questions from Tammy. Let me see. I'll add this. So it says, Dr. McDougall, if you have an A1C of 15 with high fasting glucose numbers, do you still suggest starches up front to them, or do you suggest they hold off initially?
Only if you want to be cured. Okay, if you have type 2 diabetes, I don't know, with an hemoglobin A1C of 15, that's pretty darn high. And that may suggest you have a more insulin insufficiency tending toward type 1 diabetes. But by definition, type 2 diabetes is curable 100% of the time with weight loss. Just is. And the best way to permanently lose weight is the diet that I teach, a starch-based diet. I have taken people commonly off 120, 140 units of insulin the day that I started taking care of them. You know, so yeah, you start eating starch from the beginning. You might as well start getting well from the beginning. If you read on my website sections on diabetes, you'll see how sugar, and I mean pure white sugar, makes insulin work better. And fat paralyzes insulin. So why don't you get your insulin that you're producing working at the highest efficiency possible? And you do that by eating sugar. Excuse me, sugar. But of course, we don't eat it in the form of white sugar. We eat it in the form of potatoes and rice and corn. Yeah,
It's
that's how you eat starch right now. Start. Get some doctor supervision, or better yet, come to our 12-day internet program. We have doctors who take care of you.
it's so interesting to me because my dad died from complications of diabetes, type 2, and strokes. And he also had heart disease. And he I've mentioned this on this before, like he loved sugar, like loved candy. And he would actually like buy candy under the premise of, for me, like give it to me, I'd put it in my room because I have older siblings 'cause I don't want them to eat it, then sneak in my room in the middle of the night and eat the candy because it was his favorites. And I grew up thinking that the sugar, because he ate a lot of it, was the source of his diabetes and obviously ending his death in his 50s. But then you watch a movie like What the Health, right? And then they talk about diabetes and the correlation to fat and the oils. And then I think back on what his diet was like. Well, a ton of animal products, steaks, meat, chicken, high fat foods. Of course, a lot of the sugar foods, a lot of the cakes are high in fat in addition to having sugar in them. And I went, that was the culprit more so than the candy. Because of, what you're saying.
Right.
And people need to hear that.
No, they really need to hear it, and doctors need to hear it. Dietitians need to read the science, and it's all clear. It's not that there's any controversy about this. The science is absolutely clear. So the other thing I want to point out is that people love sugar. The tip of the tongue tastes with pleasure sugar. So your dad was looking for sugar. If it would have been in the form of fruit, potatoes, rice, corn, sweet potatoes, then he would have plowed through the meal plan and had good health at the end instead of death. But the only way he could find sugar was in the form of 50% fat, 50% sugar in the form of cakes and candy bars, etc. So he was naturally looking for what the body needs, which is sugar. Not white sugar, but sugar in the form of starch. And while seeking the sugar, which he had to have, and in his case it was a point of self-destruction, in seeking the sugar that he so desired, was so, quote, addicted to, he killed himself because it wasn't available in anything but his food poisons. And again, getting back to that steak, and the way to eat the steak is you have to have a sugar-laden barbecue sauce to pour over it.
Yeah, I used to give him his insulin shots. I used to fill the needle and make sure there was no air bubbles and did the alcohol swab and put it on his leg and stick the needle in his leg and give him his insulin. I mean, it was fun, but I also understood at such a young age that what he was doing was killing him. And the result was from 18 on, I didn't have my dad.
Well,
You have
I'm sorry to hear
choices.
that.
It's okay, but it's choices. His choices. And
Yeah, but you didn't really have the information that you have today either, Helene.
true,
No,
not at all.
better. My dad almost died of heart disease, and because I was able to help him, I gave him 11 more years. And Mary's dad, my father-in-law, he almost died at 70. He lived to be 93. And both of these men were on the verge of death in the heart surgeries, ready to die. And plain and simple, they got 11 and 23 years extra. And I wish I could have shared the same with your dad. And I'm really glad that, like I say, in my mid 70s, I have such a great relationship with my kids and grandkids. And whoa, I tell you, these are the golden years. It's just, you've got to live them, and your dad didn't get to live them.
Right. He would have. There are things that I do that I know he would love. He would love all this technology. I mean, because you know, technology back in 1988, there really wasn't much. Like cell phones had just come out and they were like big box cell phones. And he was like, my son has a cell phone. And then as technology has improved, I always think like he would have loved this. But
Yeah,
sadly, yeah, it
I,
would have
I,
been so
I
cool.
my dad was in the car business. He designed cars for Ford Motor Company, and so my whole life was spent with automobiles.
Oh, that's cool.
And I see the Tesla driving down the road, and I go, "My God, my dad would go crazy if he could
Yeah.
see that computer driving down the road on four wheels." Oh,
Yeah, exactly. So I'm really glad you can relate to that because it's a cool feeling. You gotta just do things in their memory. That's all you can do. So Tammy has a follow up. We have a couple of questions actually. So she said, cholesterol. What do you suggest to bringing down the cholesterol? Plant based for almost 4 years, and my cholesterol goes in normal, then bounces out, then normal, then out. I'm not the A1C of 15. That is a friend of mine. I have a normal A1C. She was asking for a friend, same person. Yeah,
well, a couple.
this one is close to. I've had high cholesterol as being vegan, and I talked to a doctor at the Peapod conference, and he's like, oil.
Well, could be. There are a couple things that I've taken care of 12,000 patients. I personally have taken care of 12,000 patients. So, I'm not one of these doctors in a theory box. I'm right there seeing patients. So, a couple of things I've learned is, and we've published this in the scientific research. I have three major papers out there published. I have 7 papers published, but 3 specifically about our program. And our average drop in cholesterol is 22 points in 7 days. And our Oregon Health and Science University study, which is an independent study of our program, showed that people maintained a 20-point drop in cholesterol over a year. So usually cholesterol drops when you stop eating cholesterol. And cholesterol is only found in any significant amounts in animal foods. The other thing, as the doctor mentioned to you, was fats. Saturated fats in particular raise blood cholesterol. Yeah, you should get all the fats out of your diet. Also, simple sugars raise your cholesterol. So I would look at that as a possibility. After you do everything right, in other words, you eat a starch-based diet with fruits and vegetables, no animal foods, minimal processing. Then what you do is you have to decide whether or not these numbers are really relevant. I have to tell you, people overinterpret the predictive value of their blood cholesterol. Blood cholesterol predicts whether you're going to have a heart attack or stroke, but not that well. Yeah, It's good to have a higher cholesterol, but people with low cholesterol drop dead of heart attacks and strokes. And people with high cholesterols, they live without having any of these artery problems. So use this for what it is, which is a sign that you ought to change your diet. All right, you've already changed your diet. Then you have to ask yourself, do you want to change that sign? It's not a disease. Nobody dies of cholesterol. It's a sign of the health of the body, the blood cholesterol level. If you want to make that sign look better, we got drugs that do it, like statin drugs. They're very good at that. And I use statin drugs in some of my patients, but I very selectively. So, that's what you need to do. You need to go to the drug business. And just as an ending thought, I have patients that I've taken care of for decades. So I know what's going on with them. We studied them carefully, particularly women. Particularly women as they get into middle age, when they start being worried about their cholesterol. I've had many women, we have cholesterols in the 300 range, and we've studied their heart arteries through heart scans, baby clean. So like I say, don't overstate it. If you need your cholesterol to be one more nail in the coffin that gets you to finally change your diet, go have your cholesterol checked. You need to use something to show the rewards of changing your diet, go get your cholesterol checked. We check the cholesterol of every patient who enters our program when they come and when they leave. And as I say, we're going to get better drops in our telemarketing, our telemedicine program we're running now than we ever did in the residential programs. We took care of 6,000 people. Part of them at St. Helena Hospital and part of them at our resort. 6,000 people. We've been doing this a long time. We've got a lot of data, a lot of experience. But
So
I think that doing it by the internet has just been such a plus.
yeah, so that the women with the 300 cholesterol and the clean arteries,
Yep.
it's, any idea why their cholesterol? So is there? I mean, it's interesting to me because as women we get to this certain stage, and yeah, it's like weird stuff starts to happen with our bodies that men don't go through. And suddenly, like, I see the things on my Facebook, your belly fat, you can't get rid of it when you're in menopause, but if you exercise daily, you can do that. I kind of look at it and I go, don't blame menopause for some of these things. Your actions or your lack of action or behaviors could be the reason why you have some of those things.
Well, the reasons why, are certainly metabolic, and many times they're inherited. But as I say, your blood cholesterol doesn't always reflect the condition of your body. Here, in your case, or probably in the person who wrote in, they're eating a good diet, a really good diet. And yes, you want to try and improve the diet so that you can take every advantage of non-toxic, no-cost treatment, which is food.
Right. Right, so Stephen he has a long one. So he says, Dr. McDougall, in your book, The Healthiest Diet on the Planet, you write of the worsening health in the world. How can we get our governments to endorse plant-based diets? On page 33, you wrote, it's a quote, the world has changed greatly over the past 35 years. More than 90% of the world's rice is produced and consumed by people living in the Far East. However, as the wealth of people in this part of the world has increased, the consumption of meat and dairy foods and vegetable oils has more than doubled over the past 35 years, while the consumption of rice per capita has decreased. To no one's surprise, the health of the people worldwide has deteriorated during this same period, with alarming near epidemic increases in obesity, heart disease, and type 2 diabetes.
So I guess I missed the question and all that.
How can we get our governments to endorse plant-based diets?
Well, you know what? Don't get me into politics. This has been one heck of a year, and all I can tell you is I finally have hope. We're starting to talk about the fact that we've got a really big planet that's in really big trouble, and putting energy into saving our planet is something important in this administration. But like I say, that's as far as I'm going to go in politics. As far as people paying attention, that kind of goes in with the question you asked me earlier, which is how can we get people changed now? Will it ever happen? And I started by introducing the fact that we have technology today that makes it possible. And we also have needs. We had, even though it went primarily unapparent, The fact that we're destroying our planet in a huge, probably unstoppable way. But, we became aware just last January and February of 2020 of our vulnerability to epidemic diseases. And we changed as a world in hours. In hours, we changed. We stopped the airplanes. We stopped traveling. We changed everything in hours. So, we have a world set up to respond. And we did respond to COVID-19. And we're still responding in all kinds of ways. But that, again, the politics and many other things. But at least there's not a person on this earth, probably, that isn't aware of COVID-19 and that you need to do something. They probably heard of masks. They probably heard of washing their hands. They probably heard of vaccinations. But I bet they haven't heard about the food. The food makes all the difference as to whether or not you go on to die from this disease. Anthony Fauci came out in June and told the public, told the Congress, actually, he was testifying in front of Congress. He said that, if you do not have comorbid factors, which are due to the food we eat, the ones we've been talking about, diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, obesity, it's only those who have comorbid factors that progress from a mild, asymptomatic, tolerable disease to where they need hospitalization, mechanical ventilation, and they're dead. So, but nobody talks about that. And I get a big kick out of, even though, there's a little truth to it, a little not so truth to it. I get a big kick out of about people talking about the vaccination. And, well, it doesn't prevent you from getting COVID-19 always, but it always keeps you from dying. And, that's what we want to do, is avoid dying. So, hey, potatoes and rice keep you from dying, folks, and there's no side effects.
It's a very valid point. I mean, extending your life so that you live it in a way that you're healthy and happy and functioning, and where you can walk and enjoy and travel and do these things as you age, as we're all hopefully going to age, and you want to age gracefully and live, and not just like kind of be old and crotchety and stuck in a chair or a bed.
Well, talk to me in 10 or 15 years, okay? I don't know.
Oh, you do great. So
like I say, Helene, if I honestly knew how much good function, enjoyment that I'd have out of my life at this particular stage, I would have not, been so reticent about getting older. It ain't so bad. It really isn't. But it must be really tough for people like your dad and other folks out there that, spend their week going to the doctor, and the rest of their week going to the pharmacy, and the rest of the week worried about going to the hospital. And, what a way to live. That's not good. Mary and I, fortunately, have good health. We don't take any medication. We get some sunshine, or we will here soon when the winter goes.
True. You're right. It's people have more control than they think, than they realize. And I'm glad you said that. You said that about being reticent about getting older. And I totally get it, because you get concerned as you get older. Being 51, you think about like, wow, I'm over halfway through my life. So what's it going to be like? Will I outlive my parents, who both didn't outlive in their 50s? And I have two siblings that have now outlived our parents, which is amazing. So, and I'm healthier than them. So I'm thinking like I got a shot about getting into my 60s. So that's a wonderful thing. And these are things I grew up feeling. This is over half my life. You think, will I make it out of my 50s? And then you wake up one day and you're in your 50s.
Yeah.
We have so many people writing. So let me kind of read a couple of things that they've touched on stuff we've talked about. Stephen followed up with, the Sierra Club and other organizations could be very persuasive by endorsing plant-based diets. They don't strongly endorse plant-based diets. For example, in the last issue of the Sierra Club's magazine, plant-based diets weren't mentioned at all. It's true. Like the environmental engineers understand what's happening on the planet, but they don't eat vegan.
No, it's true. I told you about the adventure uh, business we had, and we took people to the rainforests in South America and Central America. And it got to the point after watching our guides, which we hired, when I finally told them, I said, "You can't call yourself an environmentalist eating meat. Stop doing it. It's contradictory to say you're an environmentalist and watch you eat the way you do. You don't understand what's going on." And the same thing to the Sierra Club and the rest of these people out there. Let's be consistent. Let's put your mouth where your mouth is. Right. Uh, but you talked about how you worried about being in your 50s. I worried about being in my 30s. I started out really unhealthy because my parents believed that the most important nutrients were calcium and protein. And so that's what we got, calcium and protein in our house. And as a result, I had terrible stomach problems when I was horrible constipation. Lost my tonsils when I was 7. As a teenager, I was real slow. I had acne and oily skin and pimples. And then I was always really slow. The endurance, when we were out on the track, I was the last one. I couldn't understand why I had no energy. Well, at 18 years old, I went to college. I got all the free food I wanted by going through the cafeteria line in the dormitories. And 3 months into my freshman year of college, I had a massive stroke. And I still walk with a pretty significant limp today, and I still can't do my port jives. I'm a windsurfer very well. But so I had a stroke at 18. My mother called me fat at 22. I was I was 100 pounds heavier than I have been. Right now, I'm 90 pounds, like I used to be. But I had major abdominal surgery at 24. I'd have been dead before I passed my 20s. I'm lucky to get into my 30s. But I had this wonderful education. I got struck by lightning. I was, I was given the opportunity to be curious and to be adventurous and to discover some things. All along the way, I've been given what I needed. I just hope the heck I get the tools that I need to help my next quest in life, which is to make a contribution as far as the planet's health is concerned and our ability to live on the planet Earth. Helene, and this is one of the reasons we met, is folks out there are very concerned about the environment, about global warming. They're always, at least the scientists, are getting to the reality that we've only got a few years left. In fact, we probably started in months, a clock. And they're putting great efforts into transportation, like most of the major car manufacturers I've heard make statements like no more gasoline engines after 2035. Well, it should be like no more gasoline engines after tomorrow, but what the heck? Solar panels, and we have stopping the pipeline, all kinds of really positive things. But Helene, nobody is talking about the food, and I mean that, and it just really makes me mad. And I want to give you some examples. Al Gore, for example, the guy who opened up my eyes on this whole global warming thing in 2006, he hasn't mentioned it. I've never heard him mention it, but I know he didn't mention it in his original documentary in 2006, and his sequel of 2017, he didn't mention livestock at all either. Bill Gates is the guy that's really made me mad lately. I've watched that man. Of course, I've had tremendous respect for him and his energy and his brilliance and so on. He just did a whole week of interviews promoting his new book about the environment. And one part of this new book talks about his desperation. He's desperate to the point of being despondent. That's how bad things are for him and his realization of the trouble we're in. But he insisted on making each of his interviews focused around his burgers. One of the interviews he did in his favorite restaurant in Seattle, in front of a burger. Another one he did in the kitchen at 60 Minutes in front of a cheeseburger. And he's sitting and defending his meat eating, realizing that we've got to consider every possibility. He says that in the shows, that we are in such big trouble, we have to consider all possibilities. And then he chomps down on a burger. And of course, you realize I'm talking about this in a context that over half of the greenhouse gases are produced by the livestock industry. And the Atlantis Commission said we can cut our global warming gas production in half by switching to a vegan diet. This is overnight. Where's this stupidity coming from? It comes from people's personal habits and their dinner plate. Helene, we've been through a terrible political era, to the point where you don't even talk politics to your relatives. And, you don't talk religion. But I think that people are even more defensive about what's on their plate than politics and religion. They just won't talk about it. Anyway, this is where I'm going to spend the rest of my life. I have a foundation that's raised a considerable amount of money and plans to raise more. And it's a website and a purpose, my life, dedicated to opening people's eyes when it comes to food and its contribution to global warming. Because as far as I know, nobody's doing it with the sincerity, with the specific, focused viewpoint that I have. I got one thing I want people to do. I'd like you to get all drive around in Teslas. That'd be nice. And I'd like you all to have solar heating on your roofs. That'd be nice. But really, I want you to do is I want you to stop eating the darn animals and live on a starch-based diet. That's what I want you to do. Like now, I want you to eat like your ancestors did a few hundred years ago, or maybe 50 years ago. It's time.
And I know one of your primary motivations is how you started this. You started this by saying, I have grandchildren.
Yeah, I have grandchildren. Excuse me. My first grandson was born 17 years ago. And I was giving a lecture to about 300 people at one of our weekend seminars. And, I started that lecture after he was born. I was still on stage, and my daughter was still in the delivery room, by saying, I never want to have to hear my grandchildren say, Grandpa, why didn't you try harder? And they're going to, I may not accomplish anything, Helene. I can spend that's my dime, my time, and I may not accomplish anything, but they're never going to look back and say, Grandpa, why didn't you try harder? Because they're going to see that I've done everything from meeting you on Saturday afternoon to going to Congress and talking to them to writing books to doing webinars and seminars. I'll take off my clothes, stick hair to my ears, and stand in front of politicians if necessary. But they'll never say, Grandpa, why didn't you try harder?
No, they won't. Because you're going to do everything you possibly can. So those kids and those kids have a planet to live on. I know that.
We have to be serious.
Yep.
I speak with a lot of optimism, but if you think that we have a lot to be optimistic about, you better get real. We've got some movement to do right now. So maybe Bill Gates will listen to your Saturday afternoon podcast, and he'll hear me talk about what a wonderful man he is and how many great qualities he has, but he gets an A- when it comes to his burger eating and his stupidity. The blocks that puts up in front of his eyes and his ears and his mind. Boy, it's so evident. It's so evident that on the Anderson Cooper show that followed his 60 Minutes interview, Anderson Cooper actually pointed out that there were people who complained about him defending his cheeseburger on the 60 Minute show. I wasn't the only one that saw it. This is a megaphone that can make a difference. He wants to. He just doesn't know. And he got this burger that's blinding him.
It's surprising to me because he's invested in a lot of the plant-based products.
Well, he's trying to find a plant burger that tastes just like his bloody burger off the cow, and he ain't going to do it. They can put heme in the plant protein. They can make it stink as much as they want, and it still tastes like a plant. You're never going to do it, Bill. Forget it. You like your favorite restaurant. You sit and you eat your burgers there as often as you can, and you're going to let the planet go to hell and your children burn in hell because you can't give up your burger. That's what I think.
For you and me, it's just such an easy choice. I mean, we made the choice so long ago, but it's like, can't you see the forest through the trees?
You can't. That's what amazes me. Again, a man who I've always had tremendous respect for. Because he's a scientist and an inventor, and of course, a very wealthy man, and he's
Yeah,
done a lot of good things. He's really tried to help. But why, by God, Bill, can't you see past your own dinner plate?
I know.
This,
I know.
this idea that you want to make something taste like meat, I learned that was wrong many years ago. When we first started our program at St. Helena Hospital in 1986, this is an Adventist community. Adventists, preach vegetarianism.
Mhm.
So I knew I could get some good food in this Adventist community when I went there to work to set up the program. And I asked where to eat, and they told me about the Chinese place that served a vegan Chinese dinner. And then they told me about the A&W that had the best, I had to try it, the best veggie burger in town, the world, maybe. Right out on Highway 29 on the way to San Francisco out of St. Helena. Still there today. So I went in there and I ordered the veggie burger. And I went back and sat down at my table and I opened it up. I took a bite and I walked up to the guy and I said, you made a horrible mistake. He says, thanks for the compliment. That is our veggie burger. I turned around and threw it in the trash, and I've never been back there again. It tasted disgusting to me. So, it's all. It's just a matter, as you say, of adjustment.
And a good recipe.
Bill Gates, I ought to take the A&W outside Highway 29, right outside of St. Helena. It's heading towards San Francisco. You'll find it.
We have a couple of people have written since you've been talking. Tammy followed up from a little while ago that she said it was no animals, only oil is what she eats, and no vegan or processed foods. This is the cholesterol. But I have increased the cashew or almond-based sauces, cheeses, etc. I reversed hypertension, fatty liver, T2D, but my cholesterol is my nemesis. I've heard Dr. Clapper say the same as you about cholesterol. I have been genetically tested and am highest risk category for CVD, diabetes, stroke, cholesterol, dementia, APOE3-4, 3/4, and 2 copies of, oh my gosh, C677T. So I guess I worry about whether I need to take a statin. I reversed everything in med-free since September 2017, but the cholesterol, it's gone from 266 to 181, but my recent labs, it was 238, and I wanted to cry. And she also said that she's become borderline anemic. What do you suggest? Now, of course, I don't expect you to give full-on medical advice through Facebook.
I hear this woman. I hear what she's saying. She's obviously been psychologically damaged by her worry about the cholesterol. And, you can only tell in retrospect whether all of her worry time was worth it. And all you're doing now is guessing. But based upon the enthusiasm, I don't know what the right word, this woman has over dying of heart disease, etc. And the diet obviously hasn't been the whole solution for her. I think you should take drugs. If that's the one thing that's keeping you awake at night, keeping you from enjoying your family is this stupid number, and make it go away. Take the drugs, they're cheap. You're doing damage. It's ruining your life. Fix it.
And I agree with you that there's a time and place for drugs. I mean, I don't care that we're vegan. I don't care that the drugs are not vegan. The tests are on animals, have animal products in them. Drugs are there to help us get through living. And sometimes you need drugs. Do you always need them? No. But when it comes time that you do, take them. Like a vaccine, take the vaccine.
Well, I'm a real doctor. I'm a board-certified internist. I have a prescription pad. I probably take 20 people off medication for every one I put on. So, You're right. They're very important. You don't want to throw the baby out with the wash water. But good grief, the diseases you mentioned, your last questioner mentioned, they're all dietary diseases. Type 2 diabetes is 100% curable with a good diet, as you found. And the other answer to, I think, what she was asking is, would it be an advantage to her to cut out the nuts and seeds and avocados, the high-fat plant foods? Well, give it a try. See what happens. You know, cut out the sugar, too. The sugar will raise cholesterol, triglycerides.
Yeah, it's,
Eat,
process
eat,
of
eat, eat
elimination.
the, eat the diet that Daniel served his men 2,600 years ago. Eat the McDougall diet. Eat the Pretty Good diet. Eat the, good grief. We're not talking about something that hasn't been described hundreds of times, if not thousands. It's time tested. It works.
Yeah, buy your book, The Starch Solution.
Or you can, quite honestly, we have had a philosophy ever since we started that because Mary and I were given such a great gift, this kind of knowledge, not only for our personal health, but to have a very enjoyable medical practice. We've always felt that we had an obligation to share with other people. So what you'll find on our website is it's free. It's free. All the information. We've got, 800 recipes, all the discussions on cholesterol, diabetes, multiple sclerosis are all free. So, if you want to have some extra care for us, we do have programs we charge you for. We didn't take you down the Amazon River for free on one of our adventures.
Right.
We didn't let you stay at our 10-day living program for free. But within reason, everything you want is free on the site. You don't have to spend a penny.
That's awesome. What's the website again, Dr. McDougall?
It's drmcdougall.com. Spelled drmcdougall.com.
Awesome. I just want to put that as part of this so people know. And join your mailing list as well. Lots of great information on your mailing list. We've a few other things. If you can read the comments. I mean, I'm not a fan of people getting medical advice on the internet, even if it's someone like you on the other side. But Tammy actually said, I absolutely love and appreciate all you do and have done. You are what I strive to be, healthy and med-free. Thank you again, which is absolutely wonderful. And and Liz Bone just said, God bless you, Dr. McDougall. Thank you, Liz. And then Stephen actually had a very simple question because you brought up windsurfing. Do you still windsurf?
Well, next time I have a chance, I will. Yeah, I do.
Oh, that's awesome.
I have. I had a problem a few years back. I had 11 windsurfing boards, along with all the high-tech equipment you could possibly get, and I lost it. So, I haven't replaced my equipment yet. So, since the wildfires of October 2017, I've kind of curtailed my habit because all my equipment's gone. But I'm going to be out there maybe this summer. Absolutely.
I hope so. I really hope so. And one other question.
I'll be out in a nice, safe place. I won't be doing 20-foot swells in the ocean. No.
You'll be in a lake.
Where I can walk home in case my equipment breaks.
Right.
I have places like that, by the way. But there's nothing more exciting than going 34 miles an hour on an inch and a half thick piece of fiberglass. That's a real thrill.
Oh wow, I'm glad you enjoy that. So, do you have any suggestions for foods that eliminate or help to reduce inflammation and pain?
Yeah, starch-based diet. Yeah, it's my May 2014 newsletter. It talks about inflammatory arthritis, talks about autoimmune diseases. When you say you have inflammation, to me, you just have a low subclinical level of autoimmune disease. You have the body attacking itself. You have inflammation going on. And this is induced by food proteins you eat, and specifically animal proteins you eat. You incite an inflammatory reaction where the body tries to fight the invading animal protein from the dinner plate, which goes into your bloodstream. And the process of fighting that foreign protein, it attacks your various tissues, your muscles, your joints, your eyes, your nerves, everything. And you get autoimmune diseases. So my May 2014 newsletter tells you how to deal with that. And the first thing you do is you start out with the basic McDougall diet. I usually start people without soy and without uh, wheat. And there's kind of loose reasons why I do that. You can't pin me down too hard as to why, but I have reasons. Anyway, we go on to a actual gluten-free diet is the next phase. And then the last phase is an elimination diet. It just never happens that people don't get well when they get rid of the things that are making them sick. Good grief. It's the food, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to get well, start figuring it's the food. So you ask, well, what's the best diet I can follow? Well, the best diet you can follow is the diet that I come up with. It's a diet of Kempner, built on the work of many, many people, thousands of years. That is, let me give you two sentences as to what the Google diet is. The Google diet is based on starch with the addition of fruits and vegetables. The Google diet is not just animal foods or oil. That's it.
And I feel like one of the most important things that people have to recognize and realize and really be honest with themselves is to completely be honest and transparent of what you're actually eating, what you're actually putting into your body. Because, yeah, you ate the mandarin, but then, like, you ate 5 cookies. But you kind of shut out the 5 cookies because you ate the mandarin, right? So, and I feel like, and sometimes you don't even realize that you ate like the handful of chips and like, a couple of pretzels and you ate the banana and then you like ate pizza and then you had a Beyond Burger and and then you've consumed 5,000 calories for the day and a lot of it has a lot of fat in it and you don't realize, but write it down, track it, track your food intake for like a week and honestly track it, every single thing that enters into your mouth, write it down. And then see what you're doing. And from there, I feel like a lot of people can change their habits once they visually see what they're doing.
So, Helene, does this have anything to do with why I don't bring chocolate chip vegan ice cream into my house?
It could be.
I just wondered, when it's in my house, I happen to have a problem. So I just don't bring it to my house.
That's fair. And that's true. If you don't have the willpower, don't bring it home.
Grocery shopping days are days when Mary and I go well stuffed and with a real list and some real, I refuse to buy X, Y, and Z because we have some things that we're tempted by when we walk through the grocery market. But you could just say no. I mean, what did Nancy Reagan say to the young drug users when she was first lady? Nancy Reagan said to the drug users, just say no. There's no in between. There's no moderation. If you want to change some habits, don't think you're going to do it by being reasonable and sensible. It's not going to work. You have to do it 100%. That's the way people stop habits. I've never met a cigarette smoker in a half a century of practicing medicine. I've never met a cigarette smoker who quit by cutting down. I've never met an alcoholic who sobered up by switching to beer and wine. It just doesn't happen. So if you have problems with food poisoning, and I think I've heard some of your viewers say that they're dealing with problems. They know the truth. They haven't been able to make the transitions. And again, I want to remind you, we're there to help. Our whole business is helping you make the transition. And you're frustrated. Well, maybe you're being sensible. Maybe you're being reasonable. Maybe you're being moderate. Stop doing that.
Exactly. So I absolutely am enjoying this very much. And I would love to continue. I just got a notice that we have a tornado warning in my area until 6 p.m. So I don't want to be in a position where I go, peace out, I'm going into the closet with my 3 dogs, 2 cats, and boyfriend, and like really have to cut us off. So I want to gradually cut us off in case I do have to go into the closet. So, I mean, yeah, it's the South, and hopefully there won't be one, but
Is that where you live in the South?
Well, North Carolina, Southish.
Well, there's some. Yeah, okay.
You know,
You're you're
we're.
in the news. You're in the news. I wouldn't be proud of the many things you guys are in the news for, but whatever.
I know, but part of like me being here, I'm part of why the state's purple as opposed to red.
Right.
Right?
I know that.
So
I know that.
it
It's,
helps.
like I say, it's very hard to talk politics these days. But some things that are going on that I would guess most of you never believed would happen. Just it's unbelievable.
Oh, just so you know, Liz said my daughter begs for ice cream, vegan ice cream, like every day, and she's like, no, 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 almost every day. Let me laugh. Ice cream's not my thing. So, oh, thank you so much, Liz, about being safe. I appreciate that. So yeah, ice cream's not my thing. That wouldn't be the thing. Like peanut butter chocolate, yeah, like the vegan peanut butter M&Ms, peanut M&Ms that came out, like M&Ms. I should put in quotes. Yeah, that was my downfall. Vegetarian, and now we have it vegan, and it's like, well, I just don't buy it because I don't want to eat the whole bag. It's just
Yeah,
easier to
you know how the saying goes: if it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, barks like a duck. It's probably a duck.
It's probably a duck.
I have no doubt that these vegan ice creams are just as toxic as the ones made from cow's milk. Well, almost. Maybe not quite as toxic, but pretty darn close.
Well, high in fat, high in sugar.
High in fat, high in sugar, low in fiber, full of chemicals. The only thing it doesn't have is the cow protein, which is good. I mean, that's really important. And the cow fat, the cow cholesterol, the cow contamination. All these are important. But don't think you're switching from an unhealthy food to a healthy food by making this transition. You're not. You of course, may decide you want to do that, and you should be able to if you're fully informed. If you're
Yeah, I
fully
mean,
informed,
yeah.
yeah, you go ahead and kill yourself. Why don't you? Just don't do it around me.
Vegan junk food is still junk food. No matter how you slice it or dice it,
Well,
So,
like I tell people when it comes to the oils and fats, which I know is a big deal for your listeners. They've transitioned off the animals, but they're having trouble getting rid of the balanced butter and whatever it is, which is
right?
balanced.
and not New Balance, right?
New Balance.
New Balance, right?
You're having trouble giving up. I know that. But what I want to point out to you is the fat you eat is the fat you wear. And there's anything more attractive about wearing olive fat than there is pig fat. It's all disgusting, ladies and gentlemen. It all takes up a lot of room around your waist belt.
That is very true. Linda, thank you for watching, and she says thank you for a great discussion. Like Dr. McDougall, this has been fantastic. Just as I envisioned. I'm so glad. And as you know, I am here at your disposal to help you any way that I can, which I've shared before, and whatever I can do to help change the world, because you are changing the world. Don't doubt that.
We're all working at it. We got nothing better to do. So,
Well,
it's a good cause.
yeah.
And as I explained to my colleagues, is how are you going to practice medicine on a dead planet?
Right, right.
How are you going to do anything on a dead planet? Excuse me. Whatever else you think is important, it's not. Anyway, that's a good thing to land on.
Yeah, it's true. If we don't have a planet, then you won't have your steak. Try to pet the cows will probably be okay. The humans will just be wiped off.
No, we're going to kill those too.
I know.
And the spiders and the bacteria.
And the bees.
It's all going to be gone. But there's one card to play.
Yeah.
And that's the diet card. And nobody's playing it except for us. We're this little unique group here that's starting out understanding that the only way we're going to save the world in as desperate a situation as it is now is to get people around the globe to understand that they are starchitarians. Vegan may not be the right word, but starchitarian will accomplish it. So that they have a piece of turkey on Thanksgiving, maybe. Certainly not every day of the week.
Yeah, just eat the potatoes. Just the potatoes.
Eat your potato.
I know, because yeah, potatoes.
Well, I'm doing, for anybody who likes the discussion that's going on, I do various seminars, and you can find them on YouTube. And I just did one on protein, which is extremely important because protein is the number one ingredient that's killing people and planet. Because it's where the sales pitch is where the harmful foods are. Well, the next one we're doing next week, which I believe, let's find the date on. Let's see, we're doing it on the 30th of April. The next one is on potatoes, which is going to be a 4-hour lecture, 2 hours in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, on how potatoes are the worldwide pillar of nutrition and how potatoes are our only chance of saving the world. And, I didn't have to pick on potatoes, but I think it's the most likely vegetable to accomplish this task, to fill this nutritional need that our remaining planet's going to have is the potato. And I'll make that argument on the 30th, which I believe is a Tuesday, April 30th. Anyway, to find out about that, because we have a very limited number of people that attend, you can watch it on YouTube afterwards, after the 30th. It'll be up on YouTube. But if you want to do it live, where you get to call in and ask questions and stuff, you have to register. And the notice is going out today. So if you're on the mailing list for drmcdougall.com, then you'll get an invitation. If not, just pick it up on YouTube. Look up my name and climate or mastermind conferences or whatever, you'll find it.
Definitely.
Right. Saving the world one potato at a time. I like that. Maybe I'll use that.
You just give Liz Boone the credit.
I'll steal it from you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And I've really appreciated our time and to get to know you better. And thank you for sharing and just, for being you and doing everything that you do for the planet, for your grandkids, for people, for health, for, environment. And it's all encompassing.
Well, I've had a chance to speak clearly anyways.
Yes. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your day. You've got 3 hours ahead of me.
Yeah, we've got a nice day here in the West Coast.
Yeah, I'm going to go hopefully not end up in a closet. Fingers crossed. Well, thank you.
Thanks for having me on your show.
You're welcome. Bye, Dr. McDougall.
We can do it whenever you'd like.
Okay, bye. Well, thank you, everyone. So, what would you say, David? I was driving to pick up my order from Green Fair Organic in Virginia, where I saw you on a Skype call once. Dr. McDougall in front of me was a car with a license plate, Whole Food Plant-Based sticker, eat more plants. Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool. And bye, Liz. Thanks for joining us. So, everyone, thank you so much again for being a part of Virtual Vegfest Live. And you're welcome. And next week, tornado warning. It's 6 p.m. That's awesome. So, next week on Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time is Ellie Locke from Gentle Barn. Really excited because, Gentle Barn's absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Stephen, for watching again. And then on Saturday, we are going to go live at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time with Anna Ferguson from World Peace Yoga out of Ohio in Cincinnati. So that's going to be really cool. So a nice chill way to end your week on Saturday. And also on Saturday, April 3rd, do you have a family? Do you have kids? Are you raising them plant-based? Are you thinking of raising them plant-based? Do you just want your kids to have a fun thing to do on Saturday, April 3rd? Well, then you want to be part of the biggest vegan egg hunt ever with an exclamation point. And you can go find out about that at plantbasedkidsclub.com and you can register to join. It's a free event. It's about 90 minutes total for the kids. It'll end with a scavenger hunt where they get to go and search for we'll give you clues. And if you're so inclined, you can buy the Vegucated Family Table by Marissa Wolfson, who created the movie Vegucated. You can buy her book and you can donate to Animal Place for entries to win really cool prizes like a year of gelato or a $250 vegan essentials gift certificate or 12 candy bars from Panda Chocolates or a $50 gift certificate to Rescue Chocolates. Granted, it's a little weird based on the conversation we just had, but If you're so inclined to win those things, you can find out how to do that and how to donate and buy the book by going to plantbasedkidsclub.com. Thank you again for being a part of Virtual Vegfest. I typically say wear your mask. I'll go back to that. Make sure you wear your mask if you go out there. Make sure you wear it over your nose, under your chin. Make sure you cover your nose. Why? Because if you don't cover your nose, it's connected to your lungs, and that can mean that you can get COVID. And we don't want that. So do that. Pro-vaccination on this side. Put it on my Triangle Vegfest site as a nonprofit. We want to get back to in-person events. And how do we do that? Well, let's vaccinate as a society so that we can all be together again and hug and, go to Vegfest and enjoy that energy of being together. I mean, as introverted as I am kind of missing the energy of being around all of you. So I look forward to being able to do that and then coming home and regrouping for being around all that energy. So I will see you next week on Thursday and Saturday, hopefully at the Plant-Based Kids Club event with the biggest vegan egg hunt ever. And of course, Mondays and Wednesdays, we have our 2 additional shows with Kimberly and with Coach Kayla. Those are both at 7 p.m. So thank you for indulging. I will see you next week and enjoy your Saturday. And everyone local, please be safe if a tornado or so comes through. All right. Thanks. Bye.